What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about the Valve Index squeaky trigger problem. Okay, so if you aren't familiar with the Valve Index, it's a VR headset manufactured by Valve. Well, actually, it's manufactured by HTC to Valve specifications, is my understanding of it. In any case, so this is the Index headset, the HMD. This is the whole kit, and these are the Index controllers. These are, I'd say, the best controllers on the market currently. There are other controllers coming out that these seek to be just as good, if not possibly better, but we'll see about that. They're not on the market yet. Anyways, yeah, so these are the controllers. And what happens is the trigger that's underneath of them, eventually, there it is, the trigger. It just gets squeaky, right? Is what happens. That's the trigger. It gets squeaky, okay? And I've seen all kinds of advice on like how to deal with this and stuff. And from squeeze the trigger and blow inside it to spray like oil in there, which is a terrible idea, by the way, because inside your obviously inside your controller there's a ton of electronics, right? You got like a bunch of PCBs and circuitry and whatnot and chips. You even have sensors in here. And I have some more pictures I'll show you later where I disassembled my controller and took this PCB out to fix the problem. Okay, so basically the symptom of the problem is that it squeaks. It's a really annoying squeak. It's absolutely terrible for like $100-something controller. It gets this horrible squeak. And what it is the spring is rubbing against the plastic and squeaking. Okay. So yeah, you don't want to spray just any oil in there because a lot of oils eat plastic. They dissolve plastic. So you're literally destroying your $180 whatever it cost controller. As a pair, they cost $279, so like $140 controller. You're just spraying like WD-40 in there, for example. WD-40 melts plastic. So don't do that. Some people say 3-in-1 oil. I know mineral oil it depends on the plastic, but it will also more slowly over time dissolve plastic. But then you just got a bunch of loose oil inside your controller, and the further down you go, so below here where the trigger is on the front, let me blow this up for you. See if they got a better angle here. All right, okay, so here, right? So this is where the trigger is on this side. You spray a bunch of grease in there, it goes down in here. Down in here is where your battery and another PCB is located. So essentially, you could be leaking oil into the battery compartment of your Index controller and dissolving all kinds of plastic in there. And the battery's essentially wrapped in plastic. And it's a lithium polymer battery. So there's no metal shell like a lithium ion, but even if there was, sometimes the plastic kind of holds it together. So it's just a bad idea. Now, what I did is I disassembled it. Now, I took a look here at the iFixit guide, right? iFixit, these guys are awesome. And they basically tell you how to replace your strap, right? Because sometimes the strap breaks. So it's a simple instruction guide. This is the only guide I found from iFixit on the Valve Index controller. This is the right controller because this is the one I did. So I basically followed this guide, but I didn't have a pick like this. So they say just take out the strap. You can do that. I left mine attached at this thing because I got it adjusted just perfectly. So I wanted it to go basically back where it was because I wasn't removing the strap to replace it. I was just getting it out of the way. All right, so they say to take this pick in here and they sell it. It's like, here we go, like $5, right? $4.99. And yes, you're going to need a Torx screwdriver. Now what I did is I didn't do this. I tried to get something in there. I had like a different spludger that was thicker, it didn't work. It's a very tight space right there. So I went and I took a spludger, metal spludger, and I stuck it. I moved the adjustment strap to that dot, and I stuck my spludger in there, and I pried up from underneath. But it was very difficult, and I would kind of maybe not do that. Maybe follow their recommendation because as you see, there's electronics on the bottom of the cap and a ribbon cable and stuff. So I basically stuck it up in here and pried up, and I could have, if it's possible, I could have damaged this. But I saw that there, and I was cognizant of it, and I tried to be very careful with it. But it's also very slippery in here, and you're basically prying it against this smooth, curved surface. So the hardest part, I would say, is safely getting this cap off. That's the hardest part. This is not something for the faint of heart. If you're not using decent tools, it's easy to strip out the Torx. In any case, this will actually fix the problem and is generally better than a lot of the recommendations I've seen. I've seen really bad recommendations on Reddit and in Steam comments in the social area for the Valve Index hardware about what the problem is and how to fix it. So I just wanted to tell you what the problem actually is and how to really fix it. So I did have to do this. So you take it apart, you take the cap off. You got to be careful with this ribbon cable here, not to rip it. So you want to pry up from the bottom and just be careful not to break things because you got these 4 tabs that you're prying up against, and then you have this ribbon cable. And ribbon cables are notoriously easy to tear off. And this is actually in decently tight. Because the Valve Index is a controller. You move around, you flail it around, so everything has to be relatively tightly built. And you'll see like there's a screw right here, a screw here, these 2 screws for this strap, which does have to come off. That's the first step. This screw here, well, the second step after removing the cap. Okay, and there's 3 more sensors on the inside. I'll show you that when I show you some other photos from my disassembly. Okay, so you want to start off by taking off the 2 screws and then sliding the strap out, and then being extremely careful about this spring that's underneath, that's locked in underneath this metal piece right here. That spring will fly out. Basically, don't lose it. You lose it, you can't lock your adjuster strap into place anymore without the spring. So it holds it on these grooves here, teeth. So yeah, without the spring, you screwed. So don't lose the spring. All right. So you get to here, you get all this off, right? And then that's when you want to start taking out the other screws. That's when you want to take out these other screws. Here, 3 more screws. But then there's a hidden screw underneath this. So this right here, which holds pressure up on this sensor, that might be some kind of thermal detection or electromagnetic detection of some kind, for that little touch pad right there. Even though I do see a ribbon cable going to it, so I don't exactly know what this piece is underneath it. Maybe it's like a pressure sensor of some kind. I took my spludger, stuck it right on this edge, which will only work really well if it's sticking out, and I pried up. Now later it popped back down. There's like an adhesive on it. It popped back down, got stuck. It was further back, and the spludger couldn't grip it. This black surface is easy to tear up, so be careful with this black surface on top of this piece. You can see here though, a better way to go about it might just be with like a angled tweezer, right? And then stick the tweezer underneath and slowly and carefully pry up, not being careful not to rip the ribbon cable. And you might actually be able to remove that cable from the PCB. Okay, so here's some more pictures of what I did. Right here. Here's the PCB. So if you can slowly pry it up, and you see this ribbon cable here goes into the other PCB that goes into this ribbon cable here goes into this hole. Now that hole is very important. Now I did remove these 2 ribbon cables. I highly recommend you don't do that. It's not necessary to remove the ribbon cables. Once you get them out, they're extremely difficult to put back in because this cable is extremely floppy. Um, and then it's extremely difficult because it's so thin to grab with a tweezer and get in. You basically need 3 hands to put these things back on. So try not to take them off. This one was a little bit easier, but still, just try not to take them off. There's plenty of room, and be careful. You see, so here's some of the sensors. 1, 2, and there's a third one over here. When you put it back together, make sure you have a fine microfiber cloth and you wipe those off. Okay. So yeah, you want to make sure those are clean. They're either emitters or sensors, and you want those clean. Don't fingerprint them up, basically. But yeah, you can see how I did remove it. It was super hard to put back together. That was not smart. Okay, so underneath this, and there's a ribbon cable for it. So underneath this, and that got adhesive on it. Once you peel it up, there's this middle screw and this black plastic thing. Once you get that screw off, then you can take that off. And see, there's those 2 holes that line it up. So 2 pegs on the bottom of that line up with that and then lines up over this hole. So then you take off this piece of plastic here that the wrist strap screwed into. You just remove that, take it out. This piece here can come out of this piece here. So be careful about losing this piece too. Oh, and this is your thumbstick. A lot of people say they have issues with it. Thumbstick drifting. And what you do is you take the cap off and you pull that off and supposedly de-dust it, and that, takes care of the drift. Because supposedly like dust gets in the potentiometer or something. But yeah, then that comes off. Okay, so, and then you can see I removed the ribbon cable for the cap because I didn't want to work with those 2 pieces stuck together on that thin ribbon cable. And as you see, there's the other sensors. I recommend wiping those off with a microfiber cloth as well before reassembling. Yeah, all right, now I'm going to show you where the springs are. So you can see there's one of the springs. Now, it turns out there's 2 springs. There's another one. You see this hole? Right here on the other side of this rectangle hole. So one spring is on the right side, and one spring is on the left side. And both of the springs, in my case, were squeaky. And so what I thought I would do is put some grease in here. But be careful what kind of grease you pick. Once again, greases can dissolve plastic. Greases can also be conductive, depending what kind of grease you're using. So you want to use the appropriate grease. And a grease is better because it's not as runny and it will stick on and last longer in this application. I don't know why they didn't come pre-greased from the factory. I don't know what's up, or if it's just finally like wore off over time, because I used my index for at least 500 hours, if not 1,000 hours or more. And this problem didn't happen until I didn't play with it for a while, and I just let it sit. And then the next time I went to use it, it had this squeaky trigger issue. Now the trigger's clean, it works. You can no more squeak. Okay, and you see this hole right here and this little like metal magnet. And you pull the trigger, so that comes up here when you pull the trigger and pushes on that button right there. So what I thought I would do is I thought I would just use an industrial needle to grease it. But even with this big hole, like, it didn't want to really suck up the grease and like shoot it out or anything, so that didn't work. So what I ended up doing was just taking the needle and sticking it in the grease, and just a little bit that got on the needle tip was enough, and just sticking it down in there and basically kind of wiping it off onto the spring, and that worked. You might maybe use like a Q-tip, like remove the cotton so you don't get a bunch of cotton everywhere, and just use like the Q-tip stick to spread the grease in there, dab it on. And try to get like on the top, on the bottom, on the pole. See that pole that runs like left to right? Just around it though, like not everywhere, because this ribbon cables rest on that pole basically, and stuff like that. So I found for this spring, it was better to go through this hole, and for the spring on this side, it was actually better to go through the round hole. And then I made sure to squeeze the trigger and stick a paper towel in there and wipe off any excess grease that I had gotten on the dimple that hits the button. So it's very important to do that. Make sure everything stays clean. Yeah, there it is. Lots of I mean, it's a very nice controller, very complex design. These buttons, when I disassembled it, seemed like they could come off, so be careful if you're trying to pry from these buttons, because this plastic and buttons seem like it could pull up, maybe. And this, that does come off, right? And underneath it is just a metal pin sticking up out of a standard controller potentiometer. So here's the grease I use. This grease, this is Super Lube. It's made in the USA. I got it at Harbor Freight. It's a very good multi-purpose grease, multi-purpose synthetic grease with Syncolin PTFE. That's basically like the stuff, like the PTFE tape you can like thread around, threaded pipes to increase the sealing capability of the threads. But here's the key thing: dielectric. So in theory, if it did get on the electronics, it's a dielectric grease. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to actually protect them, and just prevent moisture from getting into the electronics. And then food grade, right? So it's NSF, which means if you need to like lubricate something in your kitchen or work on plumbing and you need to like lube up the pipe to get it through like a seal of some kind or something, and then wipe it off after, because you don't want to just eat grease. This is like food prep area safe, but you still don't want to eat grease. At the very least, you get a bad case of diarrhea. And then here's the part number 21030. So I basically use this for all my electronics because it's dielectric and it's NSF, which means like if you lube up a controller with it and a little bit gets on your kid's finger and he sticks his finger in his mouth, he's not going to like need to go to the hospital or nothing. And it doesn't melt plastic. So there's another reason I just get to use this for all of my electronic lubricating needs. And I list some like applications here: automotive, industrial, marine, recreational, sporting, household. Compatible with most other lubricants, outlasts conventional grease by 3 to 4 times, and who knows what that means. Has excellent adhesion. This is true. Has excellent adhesion. Impervious to salt water and road salt. Long lasting. Well, I didn't know about the salt part. That's actually kind of cool. So there it is, made in the USA. And as you can see here, it's just a nice clear grease. And it wipes right off. So if you get it on your finger, you can just grab a paper towel, and it will come off your skin relatively easy. You still need to use soapy water, like dish soap. Dish soap is basically the greaser for the kitchen, to get it all the way off. But it's not as like messy as trying to use like suspension grease or something. Yeah, and that's about it. So basically, the solution is to disassemble it and apply grease to the springs, which is a decently difficult process. And the solution is not to spray grease in there or spray compressed air in there. You can spray compressed air in there all you want. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's not going to stop the squeaking of the spring rubbing against the plastic either. So, and it did seem like the squeaking on its own would come and go, and it might fool you into thinking like, oh, I'm blowing in there and it must be some like dust or something. It's not dust. It's the spring rubbing on the plastic is what the problem is, and it just gets squeaky eventually. Or the grease that was in there dries out eventually. One of the two. So that's the problem, and that's the fix. I've seen some people say like, dump rubbing alcohol in there and like shake it around. Well, that's going to remove whatever grease is left on any of the springs, and that's just going to exacerbate the problem. You're just going to get more leaking, basically. And alcohol also, it dries out plastics. It's a solvent. It dries out plastics. So like when you use rubbing alcohol to clean like certain keycaps, it'll wear off the material eventually. So instead of having a K, you have a circle. Or like if you use it on your mouse with the polybutylene, that's that like rubbery texture, it'll melt that eventually. Eventually that becomes all sticky and nasty, like that rubbery feeling on controllers and mouses. Well, it's most likely the case that someone was cleaning it with rubbing alcohol, and they basically melted it with the rubbing alcohol. It's safe on PCBs and computer chips and whatnot. but there's just certain kind of plastics that, it'll dry out or melt. But generally safe on like hard plastics, but the color, whatever color coating is on it, might not like the alcohol, although it may be safe on the plastic. So there's this little another PSA. Know your chemicals. When it comes to cleaning and lubricating your devices, make sure it's not going to melt the plastics or melt the polybutylienes or the rubbery type plastics or the rubbery coating surfaces, and use the right thing. I just use Lysol wipes to clean my like keyboard keycaps and my mouses. Lysol wipes or Clorox wipes also. They don't contain bleach or Lysol, and they do a good job at cleaning without melting everything, and they disinfect. So it's a great way to clean things as well. But I wouldn't use those per se on chips and PCBs. On chips and PCBs, you want to go back to like rubbing alcohol. All right, well that concludes this video. I hope I was able to impart some knowledge to you about the controller problem. Like I said, it is a difficult thing to do. It's doable. It's absolutely doable yourself. It's just very difficult. You might be better off contacting Steam support and getting the controller replaced. I've heard some people say they got a new controller and the new one was squeaky. I don't know. Mine, they didn't squeak for over 1,000 hours in VR. It was like at least a year or two in VR all day, like every day, basically, for at least a year or more. So they had a lot of use on them. I don't know why or how any new controllers would come squeaking. I don't know if they even had grease on them from the factory, even because I took mine apart after a year or two of use. So, but I do know it did take mine a very long time to start squeaking, and only on the right one. My left one isn't squeaking yet, so I didn't bother taking the left one apart because it is kind of a delicate operation. All right, so y'all have a good day. Have fun in VR. Enjoy your Valve indexes if you have them. If you want, leave a like, subscribe, comment. It's up to you. And have a nice day.